There was news that IBM cut 8,000 jobs and McKinsey cut 5,000. Over about a year and a half, around 10%, 1 out of every 10 people were laid off. As we've been saying at Alpha, this is no longer an era where just having an MBA is enough. Even among MBAs, those from so-called consulting schools are finding it tough to build their careers. So the question is, where should you go? In particular, I'd like to introduce what we at Alpha consider the strongest school programs where you can earn both an MBA and a dual degree. So, together with TJ, from here, we'll introduce these schools. Also, I'd like to share some insights, including the background behind the recent layoffs. At Alpha, the programs we'll talk about today are highly specialized. Most of what we'll cover are dual degree programs combining an MBA with a graduate degree in technology. But for those who want to focus more on finance, there are options like financial engineering or MBA programs known as finance schools, such as Chicago or Wharton. Yeah, like Columbia too? Right. In the US, some people go to those finance-focused schools. Those who want to go into investment banking tend to lean more toward finance, but today I especially want to focus on dual degree programs that combine an MBA with technology. These are the kinds of programs that will help you survive in the age of AI. All right, so TJ and I will be talking together. First, let's start with some career insights. One more time. Okay. We'll also cover the news about job cuts at McKinsey and IBM. I'd also like to take a look at the original articles. Here it says that McKinsey is cutting 10% of its global workforce, specifically in the consulting division. I think it's written pretty directly here, but basically, demand has dropped quite a bit. They're planning to cut about 10% over the next 18 months or so. They've carried out layoffs. That's what it means.
Well, I think a big part of it is that McKinsey itself has actually fallen behind in important areas like digital transformation and AI, the kind of advanced consulting services that Accenture is currently doing. We've actually been hearing for quite a while now that McKinsey is in a pretty tough spot, and even for a consulting firm like them, that's really the situation. I think this is a good example of what happens when you fall behind in management. And with a wave of AI coming, honestly, I think consulting is going to get even tougher. Execution as well, like we saw recently with Google, where they themselves are changing how search works. If you don't do things like reinvent yourself, like switching to a new AI-driven form of search, you won't be able to survive the next generation of AI. I think McKinsey is really being tested right now to see how much they can transform themselves. As for IBM, I'll summarize some insights about them a bit later, but overall, as I mentioned earlier, when you look at things like HR, basically, the areas that can mostly be handled by AI are being automated. They're pushing automation forward. On the other hand, as it says in the second line here, overall, IBM is actually increasing its workforce. And well, automation, especially in the HR department. This time, they focused on about 8,000 people. Well, mainly 8,000 people in HR were laid off. But for example, in departments like software development, marketing, and sales, they're actually hiring more people. That's a really interesting point, isn't it? And sales are still in demand, especially at large companies or places that have a sales department. Sales is one of those areas that can't be easily replaced by AI, right? Plus, when it comes to software development, there are departments that can handle AI and digital transformation, and it's the same with marketing. People who can do AI-driven marketing are also in demand.
There's a tendency for these roles to be hired more, and it doesn't seem like sales will be replaced by AI anytime soon either. For example, even recently, Microsoft kept their sales staff during layoffs, right? So when it comes to sales, especially sales at foreign companies, it seems like they're pretty resilient to AI replacement. That's something that's becoming more apparent.
Things like MBAs or data science roles. Getting a dual degree in business analytics and then going into sales at foreign affiliated or global companies is actually a path that's pretty resistant to layoffs. I think those skills are becoming ones that let you earn a high salary for a relatively long time. I think this is one of the insights that's emerging. I've put together a summary of this area, so please take a look at that if you're interested. All right, so when we talk about career insights in the age of AI, I analyzed the examples from IBM and McKinsey that I mentioned earlier, and as expected, essential skills are changing. Things like AI, big data, networking, cybersecurity, and technology literacy have become extremely important. This almost goes without saying now. Without these skills, it will be very difficult to be at the center of earning opportunities going forward, and the likelihood of being targeted for restructuring or layoffs will increase. So, it's crucial to address this quickly. You all need to make these skills your own. On the other hand, as mentioned in the IBM article, things like human creativity, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, agility, curiosity, and lifelong learning are areas that only humans can truly excel at. That's why these qualities are becoming increasingly valued. And then just below that, it says that AI itself can automate 94% of routine tasks. So, as expected, these routine tasks are being automated. Moreover, IBM has found that over 70 job roles have actually seen increased productivity thanks to AI. Yes, that's right. What's interesting here is that, compared to the past, well, when it comes to your own hands-on experience, practical skills, so to speak, those are the areas that really can't be replaced by AI. For example, things like working on M&A deals at IBD or actually executing M&A strategies. Those are skills that AI just can't fully replicate, right? So people who have those kinds of abilities tend to highlight them more prominently. That's how they're managing to survive. And the point is that we're heading into an era where that's going to be even more important. That's what it's saying. All right, next. Okay, so moving on, what's interesting here is that when we talk about future actions and plans, there was a time when just having an MBA was considered enough, but now in today's world, that's simply no longer truly sufficient. I think it means that we now need more diversity. In other words, a broader range of skills. The era when just having an MBA was enough is over. That's why more and more people are pursuing dual degrees in things like business analytics, data science, or computer science. And of course, it also means you have to learn AI skills as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are also human qualities like creativity, flexibility, and agility. Things like leadership that brings together global teams or social influence. These are areas that, up until now, humans have naturally handled. But as AI starts to take over other tasks, these core human skills are beginning to get more attention. So now we really need to focus on honing those abilities. That's the era we're entering. It says that we need to change our mindset and adapt ourselves to this new reality. So then, as a career strategy, when you're building your career from here on out, what kinds of skills should you add? In other words, what should you be adding? And on top of that, an MBA is basically the minimum requirement now. An MBA is just the minimum, right? So what do you absolutely need to have? Things like AI, machine learning, data science, business analytics, programming languages like Python, R, or SQL. Also, statistics, mathematical thinking, and cloud computing. These are all must-know areas. If you don't know them, you simply can't do the job. At Alpha, people who go into MBA programs, computer science, or business analytics when they start job hunting, well, those who end up at financial hedge funds, asset management, or at companies like the big tech firms, GAFA/M, or those who become investment bankers or traders, almost all of them have mastered these skills. So it's not just about getting an MBA. Well, there are programs within MBA courses where you can acquire these kinds of skills. You don't necessarily have to do a dual degree. There are also programs that focus specifically on business analytics. So please feel free to consult with us about that. You can just ask Alpha, which program do you recommend, or something like that. I think that would be good. The point is, you should all be adding these kinds of skills. By doing that, you can become one of the winners in the upcoming AI era. You can build a career like that. It's becoming pretty clear now, I think. So then, which programs are, in your expert opinion, most highly recommended as MBA plus something extra, perhaps with additional unique benefits? Oh, Alpha? I get asked that a lot. For more details, I talk about it in Alpha's personalized coaching sessions and so on. There are actually a lot of these programs, and the number is really increasing. So I think it's fine for everyone to do their own research, but figuring out which one is truly the best for you, considering things like where you want to live, your family, your children's education, and so on, can be pretty tough. So please feel free to ask Alpha. Now, just to mention a few notable program names, for example, there's Northwestern Universities, MBA and Data Science, Carnegie Mellon, NYU, Berkeley, and so on. Columbia is also on the list. Yes, and sorry to get into the details, but the Chicago Booth program is really popular. For example, the joint degree in MBA and Applied Data Science. Then there's Stanford as well. In Europe, there's IE, among others. In Asia, there's NUS, Nanyang, and also CUST and CUHK. And in the US, there's Stevens, for example. With. Also, there's Holt, right? Yes. Oh, Holt, yes. Holt is another option. So, Holt originally offered MBAs and business analytics programs. And they also offer a lot of scholarships. Among these schools, there are definitely some where you can get a lot of scholarship support. So, relatively speaking, you can study without spending that much money. Even among schools where you can earn both an MBA and a business analytics degree as a dual program, there are already this many options, and this is just a portion. I only pulled out the well-known schools that everyone knows, and there are still this many. So it's clear that the next leaders or the champions of the next generation of careers will be those with MBAs or expertise in data science. Furthermore, it's clear that those who have completed a dual degree in business analytics or those who majored in business analytics within their MBA have become the real winners. Companies are also increasingly hiring people with MBAs or knowledge in business analytics for roles like software development, marketing, and sales, just like IBM, which I mentioned earlier. In fact, this trend is only growing. That's how it is. So, those kinds of it's important to pay close attention to these trends and, if possible, act early. This year, truly on a global scale, we believe that due to the influence of Trump, the number of applicants to MBAs and programs like business analytics or data science at top American schools will significantly decrease. So I really think this is a great opportunity for all of you. And if you can get into these kinds of schools, your resume will continue to shine. To go even further, honestly, from there you can get into even better companies. And of course, you could be earning $200,000, $300,000, or even $500,000. That kind of you'll be able to earn those kinds of incentive salaries. And then your children, for example, could go to American boarding schools or Ivy League schools or liberal arts colleges. They'll be able to receive an amazing education. And honestly, there's nothing more you could ask for. You really have to keep up with the times. Yes, adapting to these changes is becoming extremely important in this era. We're already in it. From now on, we'll see more and more restructuring happening globally. And as for AI-driven restructuring, the impact of AI and automation has only just begun. So I think there's going to be a significant amount of restructuring, at least from my perspective. So in reality, there will be fewer and fewer jobs as well. Yes. However, as I mentioned earlier, IBM is probably a really good example of this. It's actually pretty human-like. Jobs that still involve a lot of manual work. In other words, people who can handle both that and work with AI are actually increasing. So I think that's a real opportunity. So I recommend coming to Alpha early and aiming for a dual degree in something like an MBA and business analytics. Plus, the chances to work in the US after that have really increased, even for international students. Most Alpha students are actually getting jobs in the US these days. Honestly, they're not coming back to Japan. And it's not just people from Japan. Students are coming from all over the world. America really is a huge opportunity. I've said this many times already this year. So I strongly encourage you to come to Alpha as soon as possible and aim to apply for the first round this year, which is usually around September or October for the dual MBA and business analytics program. Please reach out to Alpha for a consultation as early as you can.
Yes, definitely. Let's aim to apply this year in 2025 for the first round and then start studying abroad in 2026. Let's get ready to earn that dual degree. There are a lot of schools to choose from, and the ones we mentioned earlier are just a few examples. We'll help you find the schools that are right for you, based on your region and long-term goals. At the end of August, we'll be going on a tour, so first, let's go check out some schools. Each school is so different that your motivation for applying can be solidified in just one visit, and your chances of getting accepted will go up significantly. At Alpha, our admissions team is also really outstanding. Since we're able to do this, the admission staff will hold information sessions, give tours, and there will be opportunities to talk with current students at the end of August. If you're interested, please check out the link in the YouTube description. Quite a few people have already signed up, and even if you can go, it's limited to about 20 people, so there are only a few spots left. If you're interested, I highly recommend you register as soon as possible. The schools I mentioned earlier, as well as many top schools in Europe, the US, and Asia, have seen a lot of successful applicants from Alpha. At Alpha, we also support you with your career after graduation, which is really important for everyone. Your goal is to leverage an MBA, a dual degree, or a graduate program in financial engineering to advance your career or get promoted. Of course, your career will continue to develop even after that. In terms of timing, it's important to first secure a solid job. It's crucial to achieve financial stability, find fulfillment, do what you want to do, and get a good return, especially when it comes to finding a job in the US. Also in the UK, and for some people, other parts of Europe as well. There are people who go to Europe too. Getting a job locally in places like Singapore is also really good. We've been seeing more and more success stories, and now we can clearly see what works and how to succeed. So please come to Alpha and ask us about those methods as well. Yes, at Alpha, we start by working with you to create your initial career plan. So even if you're just vaguely thinking about wanting to go to an MBA program, graduate school, or study financial engineering, but you're not really sure what you want to do yet, or you're torn between a couple of options, we'll help you build your career goals together. Many people end up discovering goals they never even considered on their own, and without exception, they're always moved by this experience. So I think it's a good idea to have this career session early on and use the MBA or graduate school as an opportunity to really focus your career. Of course, we also help with preparing references and recommendation letters, getting your resume ready, interview preparation, interview training, and even planning your career after that. We provide consistent support throughout the process. So whether you're choosing an MBA or graduate school, thinking about your career plan, considering a job change, or have any other concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. On top of that, we offer one-on-one personalized coaching and support at Alpha. We look forward to hearing from you. Well then, I'll take my leave.
Yes, that's right. I really do think we're at a major turning point in history. All over the world, things like restructuring and spinning off non-core businesses are happening. On the other hand, in finance, things like private equity funds and hedge funds as well are really, well, they've really been booming lately. And of course, companies that are able to leverage AI are constantly renewing themselves. By doing so, they're creating more profitable and efficient automation that streamlines both their workforce and their business operations. And the business performance will improve. Well, it's not easy. The company is doing its own thing. That's their only goal and nothing else. We cannot respond. Then naturally, people who can't adapt will be weeded out. So to avoid ending up like that, especially when it comes to things like MBAs, data science, and business analytics, I think those are absolutely essential. On the flip side, if you can just get those under your belt, you'll really be set. Of course, it's important to keep learning, but as a skill set for the AI era, it's perfect. So I really hope people will get those skills as soon as possible. Also, I know I keep repeating myself, but programs like MBAs in the US, data science, business analytics, financial engineering, and so on, I think it's going to be much easier to get into top schools this year. So I really encourage everyone to come and consult with Alpha as soon as possible. Alpha provides support for your applications, and we also help with job placement afterward. So I hope you'll absolutely crush it, get into those top companies, and earn a lot. So with that said, even though it's almost June, it's still just June. You can still make it for the first round. So I really hope you'll reach out to Alpha as soon as possible. I look forward to having the opportunity to speak with each of you individually. With that, I'll say goodbye for now. Thank you.